Okay, she's just getting off a webinar with China, so.
Got it. Okay.
While we're waiting, just a little reminder, we do have one more session of the Navigate International Conference. So it'll be on Tuesday from 8 to 10 our time. And our very one and only Nancy Howe will be presenting. So if you're interested in seeing Nancy's presentation, please join. And the other one that's going to be interesting, you'll get a little bit of a preview because Muser is going to be talking about the intersection of trauma and psychosis. So those are two. The other person that will be presenting will be Owen Kalaki from Australia, who's going to present on supported employment education. And he is quite the dynamo. So if anybody does not have the registration link, let me know. All right. Susan is on. Susan, welcome.
We can probably
You're muted, Susan.
Makes sense. I would be muted. I just wanted to say I'm going to have to shift from Chinese because Kim and I were just doing a webinar for some mental health professionals in Shanghai about doing social skills training with their clients. They're not really doing first episode yet, but that's what we hope to introduce to them soon. But right now they're trying to catch up with some of the basic evidence-based practices for their people. And it's wonderful that I won't have to pause for translation right now. But thank you so much for inviting me today. And Piper, thanks for the text. I was trying to get off and it made it possible to truly get off, you know, how things can be. So thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to do introductions first, Susan.
Good.
So we're going to go.
I see familiar faces. I see.
Oh, good. I was hoping you would.
Yeah. Hi, Kayla.
We'll do introductions first, and we'll let you introduce yourself last, and then after we finish, we will have a case presentation. I think, Anne, you're providing the case presentation today, and Susan, you're more than welcome to stay on, but we certainly understand if you have other things that you have to hop off for. So I will leave that to you. But I'm happy to start out. And Susan, I did just remind everybody of the Navigate conference next Tuesday. So I put that plug out there so everybody knows about that.
Terrific.
So I'm Piper Meyer-Kalos. I am a clinical psychologist and IRT on the St. Louis Park Navigate team, and one of the PIs for the EpiNet project as well. And I will send it to Carissa.
Hi guys, I'm Carissa Coudray. I have been working with Piper for the last 5, almost 6 years over in the Department of Psychiatry now, doing, I don't know, everything that needs doing. And then I also do clinical work with the Navigate team as an IRT. And it looks like Trisha in the chat says that she can't unmute herself, but she introduces herself as an IRT from Grand Rapids. So hi, Trisha, good to see you again. And I will pass it to Lindley because you're right next to me on the screen.
Hi, I'm Lindley Broughton. I'm the case manager with the HOPE program in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I will pass it to Orally.
Thanks, Lindley. Good morning, everyone. I'm Orally Haven. I do family clinician work with the Navigate program in St. Louis Park, ostensibly, but really in my attic, which is getting warm now. I like the wintertime. And I'm going to pass it to Kayla.
Hi, I'm Kayla. I am the program supervisor for the child and family team up in Duluth, as well as the team lead / family education / fill-in IRT for the FEP team. Susan, I forget to unmute myself all the time, so that's pretty standard. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Oh, and also, I will pass it to Danny because she's the next in line on my screen.
There we go. I also forgot to unmute. I'm Danny. I am the C specialist at the HOPE program in Minneapolis, Minnesota, or one of them. And I will pass it to Melissa.
Good morning, I'm Melissa Roseball. I'm the social work care coordinator. I also do diagnostic assessments and therapy for the Navigate team in St. Louis Park, and I'll pass it to Maria.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Vaudrey. I'm a clinical MSW student with the Adult Strengths program in Minneapolis, and I'll be an IRT. And I'll pass it to Cecilia.
Morning, I'm Cecilia. I am the IRT clinician for the FEP program at HDC in Duluth, and I will pass it to Nancy.
Morning, everybody. I'm the Nancy Howe. I work for NAMI Minnesota, but I'm also the family peer for the HOPE program on Navigate and Strengths. And I will popcorn to Laurel.
Good morning, I'm Laurel Bieschke, LACSW by background. I'm the program director for the Compass program at Radius Health. And I will pass it to Anne.
Morning, everyone. I am Ann Williams-Wengard. I'm a master's level licensed psychologist, and I do IRT and family work for the St. Louis Park Navigate program. And I will pass it to Maricia.
Hi, I'm Maricia. I'm an MSW clinical intern doing IRT at the Navigate St. Louis Park Clinic. Can I pass it to Stephanie?
My name is Stephanie, and I am a C specialist at the Navigate program in St. Louis Park. And I will pass it to Liz.
Hi, I'm Liz Breen. I am the team lead director at the Cedar Rapids, Iowa first team. And I was a couple minutes late. I'm not sure who hasn't gone. Has Kitra gone?
Nope, thanks so much. My name is Kidra. I'm a program consultant at DHS, and I'll pass it to, is Hope gone?
Nope, I haven't. Sorry, I just hopped on. I'm Hope Robertson. I'm one of the new interns for the Strengths program.
And how about we pass it to Saoirse?
Hi, I'm Saoirse. I'm one of the IRTs at HOPE program at Hennepin Healthcare in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
And then I think Andrea.
Okay, I was asked who hasn't gone, and Andrea.
I'm Andrea Botzett. I am a marriage and family therapist in the Riverside Department of Psychiatry over at Riverside in Minneapolis. So good to see everyone today. Happy spring.
And then
I think Jules, right?
Yeah, but she said in the chat, she says social worker by background, director and clinician with the Strengths program in Minneapolis. She's finishing up morning kid duty, so she'll be on the video soon. So I think that's everyone.
I think so. Susan, we're leaving it to you to introduce yourself, and then whenever you're ready, you should have control to share your screen.
Thank you very much. Well, this is a delight to see everyone. We think very highly of the teams in Minnesota. I'm Susan Gingerich. I'm the Navigate Training Coordinator, and I'm based here in Philadelphia. And Piper and I have worked together since 2000, something like that. Yeah. So it's really a delight to continue that collaboration and to see this. What's really developed in Minnesota is a nice networking of the different teams. And that's something that's missing from some of our states. They don't get to know each other like you do. And they don't have someone like Piper and Carissa who are looking to see what is it you might like to learn more about. So I would like to the subject that I was given was how to help families with youth substance abuse, right? And that is such an important subject, and I wish it were more rare, but it is not. So what I would like to do is I prepared a short PowerPoint and then to leave time for questions and your reactions to some of this. And I plan to stay for the case presentation. So maybe does the case presentation have something about youth substance use or no? Yeah, okay. Well, not yay, but but that's very relevant.
When I saw your topic, I was very excited. It's not youth, it's an adult, but definitely substance use.
Somehow the word youth got into mine and I just left it that way, but it's young adults. It could be old adults. I mean, I do know family, not in the Navigate program, but certainly there are families that continue to struggle with an adult child into their, they might be 70 years themselves and their son or daughter might be 50, right? So these are the things that keep coming up, but we're especially focusing on when it's a young person, a young adult. I was particularly thinking of Navigate kind of clients. So, okay, so I would like to share my screen. And it looks like maybe, is there something? Oh, okay, Jules. Oh, thank you, Susan. Okay, great. Someone just put something in the chat, but now I see it's not so relevant. Okay, so share my screen. And just like in the old Verizon commercials, I'm going to say, can you see me now? Can you see the slide now? Okay, good. I had experiences where I was just going along showing slides and somebody finally had the nerve, the courage to say, hey, we can't see anything, lady. So it's good to know that you can see the slides. So this is my email here. So if anybody ever wants to contact me with a question or, maybe to offer some additional resources, I love hearing from folks. And let me just put this on. Good. Okay. So let's start with the agenda for today. I know we only have half an hour, so I'm going to and I certainly don't want to cut into the case presentation. So let me try to make it more like 20 minutes.
Susan, it's blinking for some reason, and it's the speaker view, not the regular view. It's very weird. I think we just leave it like this for now.
I think so too, because who knows why that happened. And if it keeps happening, we could spend 5 minutes on that, right? So we'll talk about why is it important? Why do we even talk about, the family part of substance use for these young people? I thought it'd be interesting for you to know, to see an example of what is a program completely focused on family work versus co-occurring disorders. And then how do we compare? What do we have in Navigate that might compare to a fully focused program like that? And then, as always, there's challenges, and a lot of that has to do with reluctance to work together. The client is reluctant to have their families involved, and the families are sometimes reluctant or have a lot of concerns about being involved in a program or in sessions that focus on substance use. And then we'll kind of finish with what are some additional tips and resources. And we'll also try to figure out how, okay. So we know that many clients with co-occurring disorders, which we'll just call COD for the moment, do have contact with their family members. And that's critical. So many so much of the problems that people with substance use have is that they're no longer involved with people that could be supportive, or that can be encouraging of changing substance use. But we know that in Navigate, there's many still have contact with their families. They're a valuable resource, and we want to tap into that. That the research shows that family support and involvement contribute to a better course. There's very little research out there that shows what does improve the course. So when you get a result that says, hey, family involvement helps, you want to seize on that. And we know that if clients are not, I don't think I can admit people, but maybe, all right, is that when there is that loss of family support, if folks get so estranged because of the substance use, we're looking at increased risks for our clients that lead to worse outcomes, like housing instability. People get kicked out, right? Or people get lose their financial support, and then they're really scrambling to find money, and sometimes turn to crime, right? So there's a lot of risk factors if the families aren't involved. So what we want to be thinking about, how do we keep that family support, and how do we not just keep the families involved, but giving them some knowledge and skills that they can use? Because so often people, once substance use starts, it's sort of people get more and more used to having the substance use in the family, and they don't know how to change the course of, change the ship's direction. So not just keeping them at home and having the, in a way, the luxury of their families supporting them, but also helping the families be active and be able to try to make changes with their loved one. Another thing is that sometimes relatives unintentionally encourage substance use. And by that, I mean, examples of that would be people use substances with their relative. They say, oh, if he's going to use anyway, I'll just, I'll model how to use it well. Or it's something that they're so used to doing that they don't realize that it's, they're so used to using substances themselves that they don't realize that it's not the same for their loved one with schizophrenia, because it increases, as we all know, it increases the risk of relapses and of symptoms getting worse when people are using substances. The family may not know that, so they think, hey, what's the harm? Oftentimes people with co-occurring disorders and their relatives start off not knowing much at all about the mental illness, nor about substance use, nor about their interactions. So one of the things that's on our menu is we have to help them get that knowledge. Third is that when you look at the research for family interventions for serious mental illness, it's very powerful results in showing that when families are involved in a kind of a systematic way, when their loved one has major mental illness like schizophrenia, bipolar, depression, that you can, in many instances, cut relapses in half. So the research for the serious mental illness is very strong. So that's reason right there to have families involved. However, we also know that family interventions for primary substance use disorder are effective. So that combination of research, which is family involvement helps with serious mental illness, family involvement helps with substance use, then you've got that intersection with many of your clients. There's the mental illness and there's the substance use. So let's start with, what do families need to know, right, about co-occurring disorders? Just like in Navigate, the family manual, we start with just the facts, So families need to know some basic facts about substance use disorder, some basic facts about mental illness, the rates of interactions between substance use and mental illness. And I'll tell you right now, your risk of having a substance use disorder doubles. Your risk doubles if you have a serious mental illness, that you're twice as likely to have a substance use disorder. They need to know, why do people use? Why is my loved one using substances when it's clearly not working out? And then they need some skills for how to talk with each other and how to solve problems. And then I think finally, they need a lot of hope. Oftentimes they're in a situation where things have not been going well for some time. So part of what we need to know about, what they need to know about co-occurring disorders is things can get better. There's things you can do. You're not helpless in this. And we're here to provide that help. And we're also here to provide hope. And I've used this quote from a Navigate team member that I worked with a long time ago. And she says to clients and families, if you don't have hope, you can borrow some of mine. We have to hold that hope and that optimism, and we need to share it with the families. But it's not just about hope, because there needs to be some tools. So the most developed family program focused completely on working with families with co-occurring disorder was published by Hazelden. I think I may have misspelled it here. Let me see. Yeah, I did. Here's the book. And there's the publishing company. Hazelden is known for their 12-step. They started off with all about alcohol. Then they expanded to substance use, and then they expanded to mental illness. So this publication is kind of a combination of their new direction. And let's just be like fancy and change that to be spelled correct, right? How about that? And the authors of that include Kim Muser, who's going to speak next month about PTSD, and is a colleague of Piper's and I that we respect highly and has been involved in this field for some time. So it's a structured program, but it's flexible. It's based on psychoeducation. And it also includes practice and role plays. And this particular program includes both individual and multiple family group format. With the exception of this last item, because we don't usually offer multiple family groups, we can in Navigate. But how familiar do these things sound to you? Flexible, based on a psychoed, and opportunities for practice and role plays. What does that sound like to you? What other program does this sound like?
It's like Navigate, family education. Right?
Absolutely. It's the same sort of principles that we base Navigate on, both for family and for IRT. So we already have some components of this available to us in Navigate. Oops. They have their way of doing this is to have 2 individual family sessions and then to have multiple family groups. However, I'm just going to say that they also say you can provide the entire program in individual format. And there's 12 curriculum topics, and I'm going to look at that, and we're going to think about what do we already have in Navigate that would allow us to, cover the same topics. And you can see the topics here that will look very familiar to you. These are the Hazelden approach, the Hazelden book, but these are the topics, and you can almost blink and think that, well, this is about Navigate, right? Because these are the same kinds of topics that they have. This is continuing the topics. And what what I did was that I went and looked at the family education model manual and the IRT manual. And it's almost all the topics are covered when you combine those two. And if anybody's interested, I can tell you even the page numbers to find those topics. But what I think is great is you don't have to learn a whole new approach. It's just like using what's in front of you and already available to you, but to kind of to go in with it, thinking, how are we going to get both the client and the family to come to these sessions? How can we help the families and client talk together about it, to work together? I'm sorry, Andrew, did you have a question? No, okay, I saw your hand. Okay.
No, sorry, I'm saying that my computer's going to restart, so I just panicked for a moment. So
that was a panic. That was a panic hand. Yes. Okay, I've used that panic hand. Is that very often it's not just having the handouts, as we all know from doing Navigate. It's about how do we help the people kind of engage with those materials and feel like they can kind of tackle it. Because I'll be interested to hear from you all, but many times we feel like the families have gotten into either the rut, or that's the wrong word, into the sort of the pattern of either not talking about it at all, right? It's like there's this elephant in the room, or in the house, as it often is. There's an elephant in the room and we're just not going to talk about it. We're going to work around it. Somebody passes out in the hallway, they step over them, right? So it's like you want to help them get it. And then the other extreme is they talk about it all the time, but not in an effective way. A lot of arguing, a lot of ultimatums being set and then not being met, and then people being under stressful fighting, etc. A lot of setting of rules that don't get followed, and the setting, and then there's kind of a lack of consequences when things aren't followed. So we want to help people get out of those patterns and into a pattern. Hey, this is a problem that we can all be taught. We can talk about this. We can have conversations about this. And I have to say, I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is helping to have those conversations. And that's why I encourage you, if it's possible to have the client and the family in the same room for these sessions, if it's a particularly challenging, if the person really has a substance use problem, get them in the same room, and you end up kind of modeling how it can be talked about in a calm, even-tempered way, and where people actually listen to each other. One of the things that, in going online to look at the various things that families will say and the various things that clients will say, is we aren't listening to I'm not being listened to. They each think they're not being listened to, and very often that's true. But you want to help it be an environment where people can actually listen to each other, and come up with some strategies rather than talking over each other or not talking to each other, or when they do talk, they explode. So I think that's a big part of things. But Anne, what do you agree with this? I thought I saw you nodding a little bit here with the patterns that people can develop.
Oh, that completely resonates. I feel like that's a conversation I have regularly with families, is kind of like those extremes, and trying to find that middle ground, right?
Yeah. And your goal is probably to nudge it.
Yeah,
it doesn't happen instantly. You don't say, oh, now we're going to talk and listen to each other. It's like,
yeah,
it'd be nice if
little change.
10% of the time they listen to each other. Any comments so far about what I've said? Like anything about why do we involve families, or what do intensive programs look like, or what tends to be some of the patterns that develop? I know it takes a minute sometimes to think if you do have questions. I can't see everyone all at once. Looks like not so far. Okay. So I guess what I'm saying is that there's common concerns that you might want to be aware of. The clients often say, I cause enough trouble. I don't want them to be involved in talking about substance use. I'll take care of that on my own. That, you know, they've gone through enough. And what we usually say as a strategy for that is to talk about one of the goals is to reduce stress for the whole family. Our goal is not to increase stress, but to decrease it. And we can say many families have told us it's less stressful to actually be addressing this problem constructively than it is to keep on the way we're doing now. Another common concern is that the sessions themselves will be stressful, not just involving their family, but it's sitting there with their family is going to be super stressful. And that's based on people thinking that family therapy is where people are encouraged to confront each other and talk about family secrets, or long-held grudges are supposed to get out. And that's what you see in movies. That's what you see on TV a lot of the time. And you have to help people understand that it's different than that it's meant to be respectful for all family members, and that it's about information and ideas about how to make things better. It's not about dredging up the past. And it's different than what they may have seen or heard about what's called family therapy. Another client concern is confidentiality. Is they think that some things are going to be told to their family in these sessions that they've told that maybe they're IRT, or they've told another team member, and they're very concerned about that. I see you nodding for that one, Liz. Is that something you hear from the clients?
Yeah, we have that happen a lot. Like, they're very concerned we're gonna like tell on them, or that we're like agreeing with their parents during the family sessions. They shouldn't do these things, or like parents sometimes will actually really often they'll tell their kids, like, if you are smoking pot, like Liz and her team won't work with you. So then these like these unnecessary lines get drawn where we're like, that's actually not true. Like, we'll tell the parents and the kids, like, that's actually not a fact. But then they get all worried. Like,
they get worried. Yeah, they get worried.
There's some kind of like triangulation happening between all of us that.
Yeah. Oh, and that's the last thing you need, right? Yeah. You need to be united, not triangulated.
Right.
So I think very often a strategy is to just to be very clear about that from the very beginning. Let me just tell you our policy when we have family sessions is we're not going to tell something that was revealed to us outside of the session. But we you can say, but we do share. We are part of a team, however. So it's not that we do. We try to work. We will be sharing with the team some things that we work on together, but we won't be. We won't be spilling any beans, right? That's what people are worried about.
I think we talked about this in a different session, but I've noticed too that oftentimes parents will call our clinic and say, Tommy is using again, you deal with it kind of situation. So I think some of those strategies and like being kind of ahead of the game, and talking about that ahead of time
I think kind of anticipating it and telling what you do and don't share, right? You don't share what they've told you. Now, it is I think families are often calling the clinic because they've had nobody to call in the past, like nobody that they can actually share any information with. And it's not so helpful if it's only seen as they're going to tell on the client, right? So the families also have concerns. They think the family sessions are going to be stressful, and the same misconceptions as clients have, and they've been blamed for so many things, either directly or they blamed themselves. It's my fault. My son has schizophrenia. Or my pastor says if I was right with God, these kind of things don't happen, right? They get all kind of messages of blame. And so they're kind of concerned that's what's going to happen if they meet with directly with the client in your sessions, that it's going to feel like they're going to get blamed again, and it's going to be this get all your feelings out kind of thing. And the strategies are the same, is to be very upfront. This is about we're respectful for everyone that's there, the client and the family, and it's designed to be low stress, not a high stress thing. Another family concern is hopelessness. Sometimes they've been struggling with this for years. And so when you're feeling hopeless, it's like, I don't have any optimism for this. Why should I even begin? I think empathizing with the stress and strain that they've been experiencing, and saying that this is so, many families feel this way. This is not uncommon. And we'd like to make, the stress and strain you've been experiencing is something we'd actually like to lessen, not burden you with more. And explore what do they think would happen if you keep going as you have been going? What kind of changes do you think would happen? And it's really basically pros and cons of change, right? Explore the possibility of how might things change if you're involved in family sessions. What do you think could be different if you actually started to work on this as a family? And what Kim sometimes says is to, use the try it, you'll like it approach, is try a couple sessions and see how it goes. They don't have to commit to the whole shebang. I think sometimes families say they don't have time to do this. And again, it's like, well, I understand if you're not feeling this is going to be helpful, it's hard to put aside the time. I really encourage you to try some sessions and then decide if it's helpful enough to keep coming. And I think sometimes saying after 3 sessions, we'll talk together about, is this helpful or not? Or after 6 sessions, whatever, is that kind of join with them that, it's natural to want it to be helpful. And if they need to have a little, a trial period or a feeling of, yes, we're going to evaluate that together. I want to so those are some things in terms of getting the families and the client to agree to be in the same room about this. I think that the tips that families often need is how to talk to your loved one about substance use. And I put together a few slides based on what the literature says, and actually what clients tell us is helpful. And you'll see some of these items are about trying to make the way they talk to the person be more clear how much it's about them caring, not how angry and furious they are at all these failed attempts at sobriety, which is perfectly understandable, but to express why, how much you care, and that you want them to be healthy, safe, and happy, and you're seeing that they're using substances is kind of leading them in a direction that seems like they're not going to be safe, and they might not have a good road ahead. And then the other thing is doing things that talking with them in a way that helps the person feel like they're going to be heard. The client's going to be heard. Even things motivational interviewing wise about open-ended questions, truly listening, reflecting back what they're hearing. Did I understand this correctly? Right. And offering empathy and compassion is that this is something sometimes families are burned out. It's hard to show this, but that's what you're going to be there to work with them. And in the sessions is if you can guide them to model how you can model your empathy and compassion for the client. And I think the families then start to feel freed up for that. A third set of tips is focusing on behavior. Like what I've been noticing is you're missing, you've missed 3 out of 5 days of school because you're hungover. And this really worries me, right? Rather than going, I've talked to you about this, and this is unacceptable, and you're going to miss everything about life, and I don't know why it's so hard to get up, and these hangovers they're ridiculous. But just to kind of very matter-of-factly focus on the behavior and why it worries you. Another tip is to allow your child to experience the natural consequences of their actions. I'll just give you an example. My Aunt Frances had 8 kids, and she was on the farm in South Dakota. And her oldest son was drinking late. He was going out with his friends, drinking almost every night, and would have a real hard time getting up in the morning. And she made him get up. She said, those cows need to be milked. Get up. Come on now. You got to go. She didn't say, oh, go ahead and sleep it off. Oh, I'm so sorry you feel so bad. Oh, your head must really hurt. It's sort of like, nope, you got responsibilities and you need to milk those cows. He staggered out of bed, got dressed, and milked the cows unhappily. But it was like it connected his behavior with the consequence they didn't like. Another thing is helping people to set limits they're actually going to enforce. That too often people aren't really clear on what they set things that they're not, when those rules are violated, they cave, right? So it's like, what are some real basic household rules, like no smoking pot in the house, something like that, and then really stick to that. Not saying it's things you have control over and things that you can observe and enforce. Don't support substance use financially. I tell you very often on the family calls, I'll hear about substance use, and I'll say, wow, that's expensive. What they're doing, what the drugs they're using, and the rate at which I say, where's the money coming from? Often it's from the family. They're giving them money. That's what they're using it for. So that's not helpful. And looking for things to praise, little steps that the person is making towards good choices about substance use. Look for those real hard and really notice them and give the person credit. And then finally is taking good care of yourself and get support for yourself. I'll just put in a word for Al-Anon, which, as you know, is there's AA is for the person who uses drugs or alcohol. Al-Anon is for their family members or loved ones. I personally have been to Al-Anon meetings because of a loved one, and I found it very helpful that other people were going through something similar. It's never exactly the same, but some of the things are similar. And nowadays, you can often join groups online, Al-Anon groups, and try to kind of shop around for places, for groups that have younger people in them, that are younger relatives, if you know what I mean. It's like if you've got a 20-year-old, it's kind of nice to have other parents that are of 20-year-olds. And I put together a handout sheet that I'm going to send to Carissa and to Piper, that some additional resources that I found, that almost all of them about how to talk to your loved one. And I'll put that on the screen in just a moment. But it's that talking, it's like breaking the ice. And not only starting that conversation, but keeping it going. And I'm just going to mention a book. Let me just see if this is showing. How to have the School of Hard Talks. You've heard of the School of Hard Knocks. This is the School of Hard Talks. And it's a general approach to having what are often considered challenging conversations with one's child. Not just about alcohol and drugs, but it's kind of nice because it's very practically written, and that's Emily Klein, Kline. And she is someone that has done motivational interviewing skills for families. Yeah. Did anyone go to her webinar last Friday? No, okay. If folks are interested, I'll try to get a link for that. So just to sum up, involving families improves outcomes. The research shows us that. And it improves family relationships overall. If you can get those family relationships improved, that helps you for a myriad of things that go on. A lot of ups and downs for the folks with co-occurring disorder. If you have a strong family relationship, that can help all those things. We've got the essential materials to focus on substance use, and I'd say it's a combination of the Family Education Manual and the IRT Manual. And that we're all about providing families with information and tools for psychosis. We also want to be about providing families with information and tools for substance use disorders. And I encourage you to choose one or two families to try out something you learned today. Maybe talk to them about, let's have some sessions that include your loved one, that we're going to focus on substance use, or let's review some basic facts about substance use together. Or let's talk about how you could start that conversation with your loved one. And just a quick thing is to show you that sheet so you know what's the kind of things that are on it. I think I have to stop share before I can share again. Okay. So these are websites. And as you can see, that they're about framing the conversation. And I found it helpful in reading them. It's sort of like you can start to imagine how a conversation could go. I think many of our families, and for me, in my situation, it was like, how do you actually start that conversation? How do you make it not be a disaster, right? These are just all kinds of just different things. And this one, SAMHSA's campaign, They Hear You, Talk, They Hear You. I think this is the one that had a few TikTok things, or that were a young person talking about, here's how we like you to talk to us, right? That was a cool thing. And then just a reminder about Al-Anon and how to find a meeting. And this is a neat one, this partnership to end addiction. It's about start talking. It's the talking part that's real hard. It has to be followed up by action, but it's the talking that I think is the entryway into this. Okay, so thank you guys. That was a whirlwind tour. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Any questions? It says you need to jump to another meeting, Nancy. Bye, Nancy. So anything that came up during this, if you had a question about or a comment about or disagree with, I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Hi, Susan. I have a question. Orly Haven here.
Thank you, Orly.
Yeah, you bet. I have a situation that comes up and I muddle through it as best I can, but it's a little bit of a pattern that I see when I'm working with families of our slightly younger folks. So more in the, maybe 16-ish age range.
Okay.
And I hear a lot when we get to the basic facts about drugs and alcohol is that family are really interested in and grateful for the information. And they say, now you're not going to tell my kid this information, right? Because if you tell them about this, it's like the gist of it is that families say, their brain is real sticky and they'll just get really interested in drugs, and learning more about drugs is going to make them want to do drugs more. So please don't tell them anything about drugs.
Oh my goodness.
Right. So I'm being a bit hyperbolic.
I
but
know, but it's a good scenario for me to know about. Yeah.
Yeah, so I talk about my responses, we don't actually believe that, person-centered. The Navigate approach is to give people factual information, and the underlying messaging is substances are not good for the brains of folks who experience psychosis. We recommend against it. So
yeah,
we're very clear about that, and giving factual information we feel like is a good thing. But it's been a real point of contention between myself and some family members, and I just wonder if you have any.
Well, it reminds me of I'm old enough to remember when they didn't have sex ed in schools.
Exactly.
It's like parents would say, oh, if you talk about sex, they're just going to want to have it. Guess what? They're going to have it. What we want to talk about is being knowledgeable and being especially about birth control and sexually transmitted diseases, and about being able to say no. And it's like, but the common belief was that if you talk about it, it's like the first time they ever heard it, right? And I don't think so. So and I'm not familiar with the research. I don't think there's been a study like that. Does it make people want to do drugs? What happens is, I think what we all always want to do when we're doing the education about common cause, what do people like about drugs, right? I think that explaining the reason we're doing this is if we don't understand what people get out of it, we're it's going to be very hard for folks to give it up because they need some other way of getting this result. And if we don't even know what they're looking for result wise, it's very hard. So some of the common reasons, boredom. Well, that's good to know, right? So that we can help them be less bored. It's like, but making sure that you don't just that you don't end a session with how the positive effects, is to try to make sure you get at least a few negative effects in there before the next session, so that the families see that you really are doing that. Yeah, that's so interesting. Anything else before because I know we want to leave time for the case presentation, but anything else though? Yeah.
I don't know if it's really a question, maybe a reflection, but I feel like the biggest problem we run into is like kind of a power struggle about substance use. Like we just had somebody that took a lot of Benadryl when they were in their episode. So now their parents aren't giving them any Benadryl, even if they have a cold, without calling me. I'm like, well, I'm sure it's fine. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's a huge point of contention about even things that we don't have any authority over.
Yeah. And I think part of it is helping folks know a little bit more of the facts. So what are the facts about Benadryl? I think that would be useful to know. And then what is a dose that is not going to cause a problem? And what is a dose that would? And with he took a bunch of Benadryl. What is Benadryl?
He did get really sick. He had like a stroke situation kind of happen.
Yeah.
Very unfortunate. But then when he got out of because he was sick, he was having an episode and didn't know what else to do. So when I went over there, they're like, well, we don't want you to take anything until we talk to Liz. And I was like, well, I can't advise that, but I can just tell you.
Get your prescriber involved if you could, to get the prescriber involved and have that, and maybe pop into one of your sessions, or you pop into one of his with them and say, let's talk about substances and what we have to look out for and what we don't have to.
So I said, here's the facts about Benadryl. And then they said, well, that's fine, but here's the other fact. Our kid almost died. So then it was kind of and I'm like, well, I see that also. We're kind of in this
right.
All the facts were true. All these things can be true.
Yeah, and it's like putting that together. What are the risks and what are the benefits of some of these? You can actually you can get in trouble drinking. I mean, there's things in the kitchen that people can ingest.
Susan, sorry, I was just one thing that I was thinking of, and I'm just curious to hear your thoughts about this, is that in my conversations with families when they're in this like fear place, like it sounds like Liz, like your family was in, right? And like Orly, your family was in. It's like the fear is so intense about what happened to their child or what could happen.
Yeah.
That it's almost like if we don't really enter into that and validate that, they're stuck.
You do
It's like
have
we
to
almost
validate.
have to be like, oh my goodness, you just like really be there until they can kind of like, okay, she gets it, or they get it,
How scared I was, how awful this was,
Oh my God.
how worried I was.
Yeah. And
What
maybe,
hell I went through. Yeah.
right. It's almost then like then their sympathetic nervous system can kind of like come down. And then the information maybe, and maybe not, right? I don't know. But I don't know. That's just one thing I've noticed. And I think, for approaching it from like our client is our client, not our family's not our client. But like I think that in that sense, like we're not going to really help the client until we really validate the family, right? So
Right. I realize that I don't want to cut into the case presentation. So any further stuff, I'm more than happy to if you want to email me or something, I'm really happy to respond. But it's been great to talk to you guys today, and I'm going to step back and hear this the case presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. I so appreciate it. And Susan's correct. If you have any questions, please email her. She's really good about helping out